Welcome back, you beautiful disaster. Ready for another truth they don't want you to hear? Look who finally picked up the phone. Look who finally made the call that changed everything. You beautiful, strategic, untouchable masterpiece. You know what I heard? They said you were outgunned, outmanned, outspent, outplayed. They had the private investigators, the lawyers, the connections, the Swiss accounts. They had everything mapped out, every move calculated, every exit blocked. But they forgot one tiny, devastating detail. They forgot that when you push someone past their breaking point, past their fear, past their need to be liked, past their desire to play fair, you don't create a victim, you create a weapon. And that weapon only needs one bullet. The phone call, 3 minutes and 47 seconds. That's all it took to dismantle an empire built on lies, maintained by fear, protected by money. While they were busy counting their billions, hiring their stalkers, building their walls of lawyers and threats, you were doing something they never expected. You were taking note. Every conversation, every threat, every bribe, every moment they thought you were too scared to remember. You were building a case, not in a courtroom, but in the court of consequences. And when you finally dialed that number, when you finally spoke those words they never thought you'd have the spine to say, their entire kingdom started to crack. They thought money was power, they thought surveillance was control, they thought fear was forever. But you understood something they never learned in their ivory towers and boardrooms. Real power isn't about how much you have. It's about knowing exactly when to use the little you've got. It's about understanding that sometimes one perfectly placed truth can topple 1,000 carefully constructed lies. And that Tuesday morning at 9:17, while they were probably on their third espresso in some penthouse office, counting their assets and laughing about how they had you cornered, you picked up a phone that cost less than their morning coffee and ended their world. Let me paint you the picture they'll never admit to seeing. The moment their assistant walked in with that look on their face. The moment their lawyer called with a voice that couldn't quite stay steady. The moment they realized that all their money, all their power, all their carefully paid stalkers, none of it mattered anymore. Because you didn't fight them where they were strong, you fought them where they were exposed. And the most beautiful part? They trained you to do it. Every time they flexed their power, they showed you their weakness. Every time they sent someone to watch you, they revealed what they were afraid of. Every time they threatened you with their money, they told you exactly where to aim. You remember how it started, don't you? The subtle threats wrapped in legal language, the friendly visits from people who just happened to know everywhere you went, the bank accounts that mysteriously had issues, the job opportunities that suddenly disappeared. They wanted you to feel it, that cold grip of helplessness. They wanted you to understand that they owned the board, the pieces, and the rules. They had journalists on payroll, judges in their pocket, and enough money to bury you in legal fees before you even got to tell your side. They looked at you and saw another problem to be solved with a checkbook. But here's what billionaires never understand about people like us. We didn't grow up with safety nets. We didn't learn to fight in boardrooms. We learned to survive in places where money meant nothing and everything was personal. While they were taking tennis lessons, we were learning that sometimes the only way out is through. While they were inheriting empires, we were discovering that when you have nothing left to lose, you become the most dangerous person in any room. They sent stalkers to watch you, document your every move, build their files. What they didn't realize is that every stalker they sent was teaching you how they operated. Every intimidation tactic was showing you their playbook. For months, maybe years, they thought they had you figured out. Poor little you, struggling to pay rent while they moved millions with a phone call, checking your rear-view mirror for the cars that followed you while they sat in climate-controlled offices deciding your fate. They probably had meetings about you. Can you imagine billionaires sitting around mahogany tables discussing how to handle the situation that was you? They assigned budgets to your destruction. They had PowerPoints about your weaknesses. They thought they were playing chess while you were playing checkers. The joke was on them. You weren't playing at all. You were studying. Every move they made taught you something. Every pressure point they pushed showed you theirs. When they froze your accounts, you learned about financial warfare. When they sent people to follow you, you learned about surveillance. When they tried to isolate you, you learned about network effects. They gave you a master class in power, thinking they were giving you a beating, and the whole time, you were that student they never saw coming. The one taking notes, not to pass the test, but to burn down the school. They created their own destroyer, funded their own downfall, and signed their names on their own ending. Let's talk about that phone call. Not the dramatic version they'll tell in boardrooms as a cautionary tale. Not the watered-down version their lawyers will try to spin. The real version. The one where your hands were shaking but your voice was steel. The one where every word was chosen not for impact but for accuracy. Because that's what they never understood about truth. It doesn't need to be dressed up. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be released at the right time, to the right person, in the right way. And you had become a master of timing. Who did you call? The journalist they thought they owned, but who still had a conscience? The federal investigator who'd been looking for just one crack in their armor? The family member they'd betrayed on their way to the top? Or was it simpler than that? Was it just the right person with the right information at the right moment, when their empire was vulnerable? It doesn't matter who it was. What matters is that you knew exactly who to call. Because while they were watching your every move, you were mapping their entire network. Every connection, every weak link, every person they'd stepped on to get where they were. The beautiful thing about billionaires is they create so many enemies on their way up. They just assume money will keep those enemies silent. They assume fear will keep them in line. They assume that power is permanent and memories are short. But you remembered everything, every person they'd destroyed, every corner they'd cut, every law they'd bent until it broke. You became a collector of their sins, a librarian of their secrets. And when the time came, you didn't need an army. You didn't need billions. You just needed one phone number and the courage to dial it. 3 minutes and 47 seconds. That's how long it takes to tell the truth when you've been rehearsing it in silence for years. No dramatics, no threats, no bargaining, just facts, delivered with the precision of someone who'd been sharpened by suffering into something they never saw coming. You gave names, dates, account numbers. You connected dots they thought were invisible. You pulled threads they didn't even know existed. And the person on the other end? They'd been waiting for that call. They'd been hoping someone, anyone, would finally have the courage to make it. You weren't just making a phone call. You were lighting a fuse they'd laid themselves. The first domino fell within hours. Maybe it was a frozen account. Maybe it was a federal subpoena. Maybe it was just a reporter asking questions that weren't supposed to be asked. But they felt it immediately. That shift in the air, that change in temperature. Their phones started ringing with the wrong kinds of calls. Their lawyers started sounding nervous. Their allies started having scheduling conflicts. The kingdom they'd built on intimidation started to shake because someone finally wasn't intimidated anymore. And that someone was you. You have to understand what you did to their psychology. These people had lived their entire lives believing that money was the ultimate shield, that enough zeros in a bank account made them untouchable. But they'd bought their way out of every consequence, paid off every threat, buried every scandal. They moved through the world like monsters among mortals, genuinely believing that rules were for other people. Then you came along. You, with your regular phone and your regular life and your irregular courage. You showed them that all their billions couldn't buy them protection from someone who'd stopped being afraid. The stalkers they'd hired started calling in sick. Funny how that works, isn't it? When the ship starts sinking, even the rats know to run. The investigators who'd been documenting your every move suddenly had other priorities. The lawyers who'd been sending threatening letters suddenly recommended exploring settlement options. The entire machinery they'd built to crush you started to sputter and stall because machinery needs operators, and operators can smell which way the wind is blowing. They'd intimidated hundreds, maybe thousands, but they'd never faced someone who'd turned their intimidation into education. Watch how fast billions become worthless when the right people start asking the right questions. Watch how quickly power evaporates when it's exposed to light. They're probably in damage control mode now, throwing money at the problem like they always do. But here's the thing about truth. It's expensive to bury and impossible to kill. Every dollar they spend trying to contain what you started just creates more paper trails. Every person they try to silence becomes another potential phone call. Every move they make in desperation just proves what you said was true. You didn't just make a phone call. You started an avalanche. And avalanches don't care about your net worth. They're not sleeping well anymore, are they? Those Egyptian cotton sheets on their California king beds feel a little less comfortable when you're waiting for the next shoe to drop. Their personal chefs are preparing meals for people who've lost their appetite. Their private jets are fueled up for escapes they're not sure they can make because you did something to them that all their money can't fix. You put fear in hearts that had forgotten what fear felt like. You made them feel what they'd made hundreds of others feel. And unlike them, you didn't need a team to do it. This is what they never tell you in business school. Real power isn't about what you can build. It's about what you can destroy with the truth. They spent decades constructing elaborate lies, complex schemes, intricate networks of mutual corruption. They had politicians in their pockets and police on their payroll. They thought they'd built something permanent, something too big to fail. But you understood what they didn't. Every lie is a debt that eventually comes due. Every crime creates evidence. Every enemy they made was a potential ally for someone brave enough to unite them. The phone is probably ringing non-stop in their offices now. Investors getting nervous, partners reconsidering, board members asking uncomfortable questions. Their name, which used to open doors, is now making people step back. The invitations are drying up. The charity galas are finding other honorees. The magazine covers are being redesigned. Because money can buy you many things, but it can't buy you a good reputation once the truth is out. It can't unexpose what's been exposed. It can't make people unknow what they now know. And they know it was you who did this. One person, one phone call, one moment of perfect clarity. But here's the part that really burns them. You're not gloating. You're not giving interviews. You're not writing tell-all books or starting podcasts. You just made your call and went back to your life. And that terrifies them more than anything, because they understand revenge, they understand greed, they understand wanting to be them. What they don't understand is someone who just wanted them to face consequences. Someone who didn't want their money or their life or their power. Someone who just wanted the truth to matter. You've become their worst nightmare. Someone they can't buy, can't threaten, and can't understand. How long did you wait? How many nights did you lie awake, knowing what you knew, holding that nuclear option in your pocket like a grenade with the pin half pulled? They thought your silence was weakness. They thought your patience was paralysis. They thought every day you didn't act was another day they'd won. But you weren't doing nothing. Nothing. You were doing the hardest thing in the world. You were waiting for the perfect moment, and perfect moments, like perfect phone calls, are created, not found. Every document you saved, every recording you made, every piece of evidence you gathered, it was all building to this. While they were living their lives of excess, you were living like a spy in your own life, documenting, archiving, preparing. They hired professionals to watch you, but you were the one really watching. You saw their patterns, their vulnerabilities, their cycles of arrogance and paranoia. You learned when they were strongest and when they were exposed. You became a student of their destruction while they thought you were just trying to survive. The waiting must have been excruciating. Watching them flourish while you struggled. Seeing them pop champagne while you counted pennies. Knowing you held their destruction in your hands, but not knowing if you'd ever have the courage to use it. There were probably moments you almost broke, almost made the call too early out of anger or desperation. But something held you back, and maybe it was wisdom, maybe it was strategy, maybe it was just the understanding that revenge is a dish best served when it will do the most damage. And you became a chef of consequences. They gave you so many opportunities to strike too early. Every provocation, every humiliation, every twist of the knife, they were trying to make you react. They wanted you emotional, sloppy, easy to discredit. They wanted you to come at them swinging, so they could dodge and counter. But you did something they'd never seen before. You absorbed it all, every blow, every insult, every attack. You took it and transformed it into patience. You let them think they were winning while you were preparing. And when you finally moved, it wasn't out of emotion. It was out of precision. The kind of precision that only comes from someone who's had years to plan the perfect strike. Let's talk about what's happening in their heads right now. These people who've never had to look over their shoulders, who've never had to wonder if today's the day it all comes crashing down. They're learning what fear really is. Not the theatrical fear they used to invoke in others. Not the legal threats and financial pressure they wielded like weapons. The real fear, the kind that makes food taste like ash, the kind that makes every phone call a potential disaster, The kind that turns their fortress into a prison. They're probably doing threat assessments now, hiring new security, but not the kind that watches others. The kind that watches them. They're reviewing every deal, every communication, every person they've ever wronged, trying to figure out how much you know, how much you told, who else might be inspired by what you did. Because that's the thing about showing that monsters can bleed. It tends to give other people ideas. You didn't just make a phone call. You rang a bell that can't be unrung. You showed everyone they'd ever stepped on that it was possible to step back. The paranoia must be exquisite. Every former employee becomes a potential threat. Every business partner becomes a possible informant. They're probably paying people to sign new NDAs, stronger ones, desperate ones. They're probably moving money, hiding assets, preparing for wars they don't even know are coming yet. But how do you prepare for the unknown? How do you defend against the truth when you don't know how much truth is out there? You've turned their strength into weakness, their network into a web of potential betrayals, their wealth into evidence of crimes. And the beauty of it all, you're not coming for them. You already came. Past tense. Done. Finished. That phone call was both the first shot and the killing blow. Everything happening now is just gravity doing its work. They keep looking for your next move, but there isn't one. You're not playing anymore. You won. With one phone call, you changed the entire game. And now they have to live in the world you created. A world where their money doesn't make them safe, where their power doesn't make them untouchable, where someone like you can bring down someone like them. Welcome to their nightmare. Population, them. You want to know the exchange rate? What one truth is worth in their economy of lies. It's not measured in dollars or euros or Bitcoin. It's measured in everything they thought was permanent becoming temporary. It's measured in every yes man becoming a maybe. It's measured in decades of careful construction crumbling in days. You didn't just speak truth to power. You showed power that truth was its own currency, and they'd been banking in counterfeits their whole lives. They're liquidating now. Not just assets. Those are easy to move. They're liquidating relationships, cutting ties with anyone who might become a liability. They're burning bridges they spent lifetimes building, because they can't tell which ones you've already mined. The very network that made them powerful is now what makes them vulnerable. Every connection is a potential leak. Every alliance is a possible betrayal. You've turned their greatest strength into their greatest weakness, with nothing but words. True words, but still just words. The lawyers are working overtime now, aren't they? Trying to put legal barriers around the truth like it's something that can be contained. They're drafting cease and desist for reality. They're trying to copyright facts. They're spending more on damage control than some countries spend on defense. But here's what their Harvard-educated legal teams don't understand. You can't lawyer your way out of the truth. You can delay it, complicate it, try to bury it in procedure. But the truth is patient. It waits. And thanks to you, it's already out there metastasizing in ways they can't track or stop. Watch them try to rebuild their reputation. The charity donations that suddenly triple. The PR firms working round the clock to reshape the narrative. The sudden interest in giving back and making amends. It's almost funny watching billionaires discover conscience at the exact moment conscience appears. But everyone can see the timing. Everyone knows what prompted this sudden spirituality. You've turned their every move into an admission of guilt, their every gesture of goodwill into a confession. They're not rebuilding their reputation. They're building a monument to what you exposed.